Good morning. My name is Lindsay Garten, and I am presenting today on the American Natural Gas Security and Consumer Protection Act. I'd like to begin by thanking my team, as well as our faculty advisor, Louise Rosen. To begin, I will present the background and overview of the legislation, and then I'll discuss the process of hydraulic fracturing, the problems with hydraulic fracturing, and our possible solutions. Then I'll talk about measuring our success, and conclusions and next steps. The American Natural Gas Security and Consumer Protection Act was proposed in February 2015 by Senator Edward Markey of Massachusetts. This act is an amendment to the Natural Gas Act of 1938, which was the first time that natural gas was regulated in the United States. In this American Natural Gas Security and Consumer Protection Act, the Secretary of Energy must define the public good in relation to consumer protection, climate impacts of exports, impacts on communities, and under this act, he must write an environmental impact statement detailing the impacts of the extraction phase of hydraulic fracturing. The United States is the largest producer of natural gas with 70 billion cubic feet per day produced in 2014. We have 2,543 drillable cubic feet of drillable reserves. Natural gas prices in the United States are much lower than those on the global market. In the United States, the price is $2.78 per million BTU, whereas in Japan and the United Kingdom, the price is $7.80 and $6.81, respectively. Because of things like the Halliburton loophole, which has exempted oil and gas companies from the Safe Drinking Water Act and the Clean Water Act, as well as new technologies like horizontal drilling, the United States has increased natural gas production. The graph on the right shows imports and exports of United States natural gas. As you can see, beginning in about 2006, the imports of natural gas in the United States have decreased, while over the same time period, the exports have increased. The United States has about 90 years worth of natural gas reserves, and so many people think that natural gas is a good path towards energy security. However, as I will describe, there are many problems with this process. This is a map of that shows just how widespread fracking is in the United States since it became commercially viable in the 1990s. Fracking now occurs in 22 states and could soon begin in 5 more. New York is the only state with no natural gas reserves to ban fracking, and so you can see they're in red on this map. I will now describe the process of hydraulic fracturing and compare this to the conventional drilling. As you can see, the well on the right is a conventional well. This well is drilled vertically into a sandstone formation. The well on the left is a newer fracking well. This well is drilled vertically, then horizontally through a shale formation. The difference between the shale formation and the sandstone formation, which was where the conventional well was drilled into, is that the sandstone formation is a lot more porous and it's easier to get the gas out. With the shale formation, it's a much tighter formation and it's more difficult to get the gas out, which is why we have to frack. And so the process of fracking starts with the injection of water, fracking fluids, and sand into the hydraulic fracturing well. We inject those at high pressures, which induces fractures in the shale formation. The sand keeps the fractures open. The gas flows out of the shale formation up into the surface. And when it flows up into the surface, it has the water as well as the fracking fluid, which contains many chemicals. And so one of the problems with hydraulic fracturing is water contamination. This can occur if there is a problem with the well casing, such as a leak, or if the layer that separates the aquifer from the shale formation has cracks. Another problem, which I will discuss in the later in the presentation, is that of seismic activity. So when the water comes back up to the surface, there's a lot of wastewater. And so oftentimes they re-inject the wastewater into the well, and because of the pressure of that, it can cause seismic activity, such like earthquakes. So now we'll begin to discuss the problems of hydraulic fracturing. So the first problem is water contamination. Because many chemicals are unregulated and can contaminate water resources, this affects human health and surrounding ecosystems. These chemicals, as I will detail below, are not all known. So our solution to this is to regulate fracking under the Safe Drinking Water Act and Clean Water Act, as well as requiring chemical disclosure prior to hydraulic fracturing and heavy monitoring. Our indicator will be maximum contaminant levels, and so basically if we're exceeding those contaminant levels, then we have not been successful, but if we're below them, then we can say that our solutions have been successful. So as I said, there's a lot we don't know because of loopholes to the Safe Drinking Water Act and Clean Water Act. So we know that about 1,200 chemicals are used in fracturing fluid. However, this is not all of the chemicals because the companies claim that their chemical mix is a trade secret. We also don't know the cancerous effects of about 150 chemicals. We also know the cancerous effects of about 150 chemicals. However, for about 10 times more chemicals, 1,050, we don't know the health effects of them. So then another problem with hydraulic fracturing is that of water scarcity. So to frack, use a lot of water. The average in the United States is about 4 to 5 million gallons per well. So this adds a stress to aquifers, especially in places like Texas, where they're already over withdrawing. And so our solutions to this are water-free fracking and regulations on water use. And the table on the right shows the amount of water used in 3 shale formations, as well as the amount of gas they're able to get out per million gallons of water. So as you can see, in the Marcellus Shale, they're able to get out 345 billion cubic feet of natural gas per million gallons of water. The Marcellus Shale is a lot more efficient because the formation is more porous. It has 10% porosity, and it's a shallower formation than that of the Bakken and the Eagle Ford Shale. So if we were able to more efficiently frack these other shale formations, that could also help solve the problem of water scarcity. So our indicator for our solution in order to measure our success is water usage per well. So like I said, if we can get the water usage per well to decrease, then we can know that our solution has made the problem less bad. And so for water-free fracking, this has been used 1,500 times in 700 wells in Canada and the United States. Another problem with hydraulic fracturing is that of seismic activity. So there's been increased seismic activity due to the reinjection of wastewater. Oklahoma is now experiencing 1 to 2 magnitude 3 or more earthquakes per day, and historically they were only experiencing 1 to 2 magnitude 3 or more earthquakes per year. And so there was news just yesterday that they're trying to reduce the amount of seismic activity by 38% in places in Oklahoma where they've seen a lot because of hydraulic fracturing. And another thing is that in Oklahoma, they can now sue for property damage caused by these earthquakes, yet they're unable to ban fracking in their municipalities. The graph on the right describes more about this problem. The blue line represents earthquakes between 1973 and 2008 that were magnitude 3 or greater. The red line represents magnitude 3 or greater earthquakes between 2009 and April 2015. The dots on the map, the blue and the red dots, correspond to the line on the graph. As you can see from the map, there's a lot of red dots over Oklahoma, which represents all of the earthquakes I was telling you about. And on the graph, we can see that the magnitude 3 or greater earthquakes between 1973 and 2008 increased in a linear fashion and then increased precipitously between 2009 and April 2015. Our solutions to this are on-site wastewater treatment, water-free fracking, and a traffic light monitoring system, which would require companies to monitor the amount of seismic activity caused by fracking and stop fracking if there is too much. So the last problem that we will discuss today is methane leaks. So there's a lot of methane leakage from natural gas production, which contributes to global warming. Methane is 25 times more effective at absorbing heat than carbon dioxide over a 100-year period. Methane accounts for 10% of United States greenhouse gas emissions, and the leaks during the hydraulic fracturing process are equal to the carbon emissions of 117 million cars. Our solutions to this problem are abatement technology, green completion, and stronger regulations and oversight. If there were stronger regulations and oversight, it would make it more economically sound not to vent methane into the atmosphere. Green completion basically traps methane at the wellhead, right after production, before it leaks into the atmosphere. So in conclusion, the United States natural gas industry must balance the economic benefits of increased exports with public good. Extraction phase of natural gas poses many risks. However, there are solutions that exist to address these environmental impacts. And if the impacts on communities are considered, and the solutions to address the environmental impacts are implemented, we could possibly make the situation less bad. Next semester, we will analyze how proposed solutions work in practice. Thank you, and if you have any questions, I'm open to them now. Yes?
I was wondering.
Well, hold on. Just bring the microphone.
Neat. Yeah, so I was just wondering, do you know if the environmental impacts and water usage associated with fracking is similar to other things in the same energy industry?
So are you talking about like geothermal, or what were you?
Well, so like drilling for oil.
Yeah, I would say that they're pretty similar. A lot of times when you read the literature, it'll say oil and gas companies anyway. And so it's a fairly similar process. I think the difference is sort of in the geology where they're drilling, but I would say that the impacts are pretty bad. And I know places in California, where they're drilling for oil instead of gas, that they're still banning fracking there. So it's probably still bad.
Thanks.
Yeah, go ahead.
Can you speak a little bit about what water-free fracking, how that works?
Yeah.
Like what's used instead?
I should have explained that. And so basically they're injecting propane instead of water, and they're injecting chemicals with that as well. And so they're claiming that the chemicals are benign. So I would suppose, because we don't know what they are, that this is just making the problem less bad. So we're eliminating the water issue, but could be opening up other issues there too. Steph?
You mentioned that methane was responsible for 10% of greenhouse gas emissions in the U.S. Do you know if the leaks from fracking are included in the 10%?
I think they are, and then there's a lot of other sources of methane emissions. So like cows emit a lot of methane. I know rice, we probably don't produce rice, but rice production would if we produced a lot of rice emit methane.